My name is Eric Alexander. I'm the founder and CEO of TC Band. I'm excited to have you all here today for the second session in our 2026 Black History Month series. Today's session is When Corporate Comes for You, speech featuring Deborah T. Owens, founder and CEO of the Corporate Alley Cat. Today's session is being recorded, but the plan is to record just the first portion, so my intro and then Deborah's presentation. There will be an opportunity for Q&A and personal conversation at the end, and so I will not record that session to facilitate honest, candid discussions and the opportunity for attendees to share personal stories, challenges, and situations that Deborah can help provide strategies to mitigate. From an agenda perspective, I'll talk a little about the other sessions in our Black History Month series. I'll introduce Deborah, and then she'll do her presentation. We'll have some Q&A at the end, and then we'll wrap up for an on-time 1 p.m. Central close. So we started off our TC Band 2026 Black History Month series with some fun. So we honored the history, successes, and accomplishments of Black Americans in a fun way. We used trivia to do that. We had our guest host, Eric Trebek. He might look similar to another person you guys might know. So again, we had a fun time with attendees that participated. We had a competition. We provided prizes for first, second, and third place winners. So a great opportunity for us to kick off the Black History Month with a mental break from mental stress break and learn some history and have a good time in a competitive environment. Our next session is next week on February 23rd. That session is called Black History, Activism, Civic Engagement, and Community Building. Again, we have another amazing set of speakers, and we'll talk about the history of activism, the history of community building, and how we owe it to our past generations to continue the legacy. And our panelists will talk about ways to do that. So it'll be a great conversation. I assume everyone on this call is registered for that session. And I would encourage you to share the session with others. The invite has a flyer attached. And so feel free to share that with others within your network. The sessions are free. It's on Zoom, so we have plenty of space. So we look forward to increasing the number of participation and look forward to seeing everyone on this call back again on Monday. So now to the main event here. So I have the opportunity and privilege to introduce Ms. Deborah Owens. She has 20 years of experience as a Fortune 100 executive. She's worked with large organizations like Johnson & Johnson, Merck, and Honeywell. As you know, she's the founder and CEO of the Corporate Alley Cat. She's also the North American chair of the African American Employee Resource Group. She enjoys climbing, Mount Kilimanjaro and Machu Picchu, and she's a proud HBCU alum from Harvard University. So I'm excited to hear that. Howard University. I am an alum of Grambling State University, so I definitely respect the family of HBCUs. And so that's what the paper said, that's her bio, but I have had the privilege of chatting with Deborah. And so the things that I've gleaned from her, from my experience, is that she's thoughtful, she's insightful, she's a great judge of character, she's passionate about her work and passionate about feeding back into our community and ensuring that we have the tools and resources to be successful as we navigate our careers. And she's a wealth of knowledge. She has great examples from her personal experience, as well as examples from the case studies from the clients that she's worked with. The other thing I would say is that this session is about solutions. It's about ensuring that attendees on this call have the information, the strategic insight, and the confidence to own their agency in these situations. Many times we feel the need to kind of take a step back or to succumb to whatever the organization is enacting against us. And sometimes we feel like we don't have the power to push back or the power to advocate for ourselves. But after the session, you will have the tools, resources, and confidence to advocate for yourself. And you'll have some strategic tools and some examples and some resources to help you do that. So with no further ado, I'll stop sharing and hand it over to Deborah Owens.
Hello, everybody, and thank you, Eric. And I'm thrilled that everyone has joined us today. And by the way, if you'd like, feel free to turn your camera on. I don't know if you guys ever had the opportunity to present to a lot of squares, a lot of Black squares, and it really does something to the energy level. So if you're up for it, I'm going to ask you to turn on your camera. Hello, Leanne. Thank you so much. And the reason I'm doing this, it's not a formal presentation. This is not didactic. We are going to have a conversation. It is a discussion. So we are going to be engaging throughout this presentation. Before I get started, I'd love to know what companies you all are from. If you could put in chat where you're located in the United States, that'll just give me a sense of what we're dealing with here. So if you could put in chat company, location, I'd love to see where everybody's coming from. Okay. Oh, J&J. All right. Wow, so we've got a mix. All right. So I want to give a shout out to my former J&J colleagues and a shout out if we have any Howard Bisons in the crowd today. And I'm going to go ahead and get started. Something crazy is going on here. All right. Can everybody see my screen? All right, thank you. Thank you, Nicole, for jumping on and engaging with me. All right, today's discussion or conversation, which is really what it is about when corporate comes for you, right? And the reason I titled that this way is because oftentimes, and give me a show of hands, something in the chat, if you've ever had the opportunity where you felt like someone was coming for you in the workplace. You may have felt stress. You may have felt uncertainty. You may have felt anxious. You may have felt isolated. And oftentimes, when these things are going on, we don't share that, right? We tend to isolate and keep it to ourselves. So, what we're going to do today is, as he talked about, he said solutions. What I would say is it's going to be about strategies and moving career wise with intention and strategy, and putting aside the winging it, right? Because how many people you've been in one of those situations and corporate came for you and you felt like you were winging it? You're like, I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm going to try this. Anybody been there? Thank you for the head nods. All right. So what we're going to do today is when corporate comes for you, how to recognize the early signs, how to respond and how to respond strategically and how to protect your career. And so let me clarify, when I say protect your career, I'm really talking about preventing your career from being derailed. How many of us know someone who was a high performer? They did great work. They got into a situation, something happened, and their career has been derailed and they haven't been able to get back on track. Do we know those people? So I want to make sure that before those situations happen, that you have some tools and you'll be able to take some confident steps early on, right? Because if you don't have a strategy, it is very easy to feel powerless and hopeless in those situations. And so today, what I want you to do is I want you to unleash your inner alley cat and tap into the power within. And I'm going to give you some tools and strategies to do that. All right, so let's talk about the sign. Let's talk about the conversation. High performers often get blindsided. So, most of the clients who come to me for one-on-one are high performers, everybody from senior managers to VPs. And let me say something else. There are no new stories. I know a lot of people come to me and they say, my situation is a little different. And I hear the story, and it's the same story. Different actors, different background, the same story. All right. So high performers are really interesting because they've never been to the principal's office. They're used to getting good reviews, they're used to getting recognition, praise, or doing a great job. And then it feels like out of the blue, something shifts, something changes, and you don't know what to do about it. Right? High performers often think that my performance is going to protect me. I got a great review. I'm killing it. I'm working harder than everybody else. I'm staying late. people clearly, they see that. Clearly, my work will speak for me. Sometimes we get silent. We're like, you know what? I don't want to talk about this. Sometimes there's some shame around that. Would you guys agree? Because you feel like you've done something wrong when often you know you haven't. You don't feel like you can trust people. And what I want to say to you is silence is not your friend in these situations. It is your enemy in most cases. And the most important thing I want you to take away from today is timing is critical. Most people, when they come to me, it is very late in the game. So, what do I mean by that? Their manager has already been mentioning some things about their performance, their attitude, their tone, their approachability, something about that. There may have been some documentation. And so they come to me when they go, oh my God, I think they're trying to get rid of me. And oftentimes we don't act soon enough. So my hope is, and what I try to do with my clients is not to help you manage these situations. I want to shut these situations down. I don't want them to grow. I don't want you to spend all your time managing. I want to shut it down. Is everybody with me? All right. So I just want to share, how many people are corporate alley cats? Do we have any corporate alley cats on this call? Okay, I can't see, maybe one. Well, where have you guys been? All right. So I really want you to know that timing is essential. It can be the difference between you staying with your company and being let go from your company. All right. So let's talk about the signs. I'm going to skip this for now. We're going to talk about the signs that most people miss. We're going to talk about what most people do that makes it worse. We're going to talk about what to do instead. I'm going to give you a framework for having those conversations and those emails. We're going to talk about, do you fight? Do you fix it? Or do you exit? And I'm going to share a real case study with you. How does that sound for everybody? Are we all on board with that? All right, so now I want to get into the nitty gritty, and I want to just tell you a little bit about my presentation style and how I work with clients, whether they're corporations or whether they're individual one-on-one. I believe as Black professionals, particularly now in these uncertain times, we have to act from a position of power, right? And in order to do that, at least when I present and I work with people, I believe in being honest. Sometimes I may say some things on this presentation that you may not like. Doesn't mean I'm right, but hopefully you'll go home and you'll think about it. But too many people are getting their careers derailed because they don't know what to do and they don't know how to act. So let's talk about it. What are some of the signs that corporate may be coming for you? Vague feedback with no specifics. Does that sound familiar to anyone? You have a shift in tone. Maybe your manager used to be supportive. You felt like you guys had a good relationship. And all of a sudden, things seem to be a little more formal. You start getting some documentation. You feel like, hey, why weren't I included to that meeting? I'm usually there. Why wasn't I part of this decision-making process? You find that you're only getting negative feedback, no balanced feedback. When they're giving you feedback on things that you need to work on, there's no coaching, there's no development. You may find that your results or your judgment are questioned. You may see yourself being treated differently than peers. You may have to do something extra that everyone else didn't do. Or you did it the way you were told to do it, like everybody else did, but somehow you've been singled out. Oftentimes what I see is there a communication breakdown. Your manager may begin to say, hey, you never updated me on X, Y, and Z. You're like, well, no, I did update you. Well, I don't remember that. You may start finding that you feel misaligned. And the last thing is sometimes this happens because you have leadership changes and expectations. So what I want everybody to do right now for me is I want you to look at these and tell me which of these have you seen in your career? Which of these most resonate with you? I'm just going to stop for a second. I'm going to ask you to go into chat, and I want to know, do any of these resonate with you? Vague feedback, shift in tone, anything else? Shift in tone, pretty much all of them, from supportive to formal? Absolutely. And so we're going to talk about how do you address these situations before they get out of hand, because I'm going to tell you, with Black professionals, when this situation start, you will have whiplash. It will go so fast, you'll look up, and I know I'm not the only one who's experienced this, and you will say, I don't even know how I got here. I I don't even know what happened. Last week I was a high performer. This week something's happened. All right? So let's continue, and we're going to talk about what do you do in these situations. Now, I want to talk about what most people do in these situations. How many people, when you get negative feedback, you just start working harder? I'm just going to tighten up my business plan. I'm just going to work harder. Because none of the people that I've worked with have ever had issues about working hard. I believe that for some of us, that is our default mechanism. The answer to everything is just, I'm going to work harder. I'm going to work harder. I'm going to tighten up that business plan. I'm going to work harder. In many instances, that will not help you. So, what we tend to do is we tend to work harder and we don't get any clarity about what the situation is. So, we talked about vague feedback, right? So, how many people have gotten feedback and you don't really understand what it means? Somebody says something like, Eric, I need you to step up more. Eric, you do good work, but I need you to be a little more approachable. Eric, I appreciated your input in the meeting, but I'd really like to see some more engagement from you. I've heard from people that you're not very engaged. You may start hearing some coded language. Eric, and I'm just using Eric because, Eric, I need you to be a little more strategic. This is good, but I really want you to really work on the analysis, the analytical piece of it. You've got a great presentation style, Nicole. You really got a great presentation style, but sometimes, your tone sometimes, I think it may make people hesitant to ask questions during your presentations. And you're like, what are you talking about? I have no idea what you're talking about. The first mistake people make is they don't get clarity. And so, what do I mean? And I know this sounds really rudimentary, but can I tell you, when people come to me, and let me just share, I've been doing that, working primarily with Black and Brown professionals, professionals of color for almost 10 years. So I have a data pool to choose to pull from. Most people come and they have feedback and they don't know what it means. They want to respond, or they've responded and or reacted, but they really don't know what's going on. So the first thing I want to encourage you to do is to get clarity. A lot of times we are all aware of this trope out here, the angry Black woman, the angry Black man. So when leadership may be doing something to you, you know it's wrong, you know it is out of process. What do? We're like, well, I don't want to say anything because I don't want them to think that I'm angry. I don't want them to think that, I'm an angry Black woman. I've had people come to me and say, I didn't get my bonus. I said, would you have a conversation? Well, I did, but I don't want to seem angry. You don't want to seem angry? You didn't get your bonus? They don't have a good reason for not giving it to you? That's something that should make you angry. Do you think your counterparts are going in there saying, I don't want to look like I'm upset? I want to look like I'm very agreeable. Do you think your counterparts are going in there like that? So I'm going to show you some ways to have those conversations. They won't be angry conversations, but they'll be conversations that get results. I've been asking this question probably for close to 15 years now. If you've ever had a situation you felt like they came for you, when was the moment you knew? When was the moment you knew? I've had people say, I knew in my first conversation with my manager that something wasn't wrong, wasn't right. I knew the first 2 weeks in my job. I had a situation once. I was in a meeting. My manager said something to me and it just didn't feel right. I said to one of my coworkers, I'm like, did that did that feel like he was really a little aggressive with that comment? She's like, no, I didn't notice that. I did notice it. I felt it. So a lot of times we ignore that, right? We're like, I'm probably reading too much into it. I don't want to be overreacting. Honor your gut. You isolate. You don't talk to anybody. You don't feel like you can trust anybody. Now, I know we have some people on the call right now who are like, I don't trust anybody in my organization. I don't trust my leadership. That's why I don't talk to anybody. I don't want them to use that against me. I don't trust anybody. If you don't trust anybody, there's a good chance that no one trusts you. And here's what I want you to know, and you already know this: no one in corporate is successful by themselves. No one. Oftentimes, we don't have line of sight to the things that are going on behind the scenes, where people are getting a lot of support. All right. Now, here's one. You let me know how this lands on you. Oftentimes, we're talking to the wrong people. You are talking to the wrong people. You're talking to people who cannot influence the outcome. So, what do I mean by that? All right, let's say there was a problem with your performance review. And let's say you wanted to get it changed, or you at least want to have the discussion. You reach out to HR, and my apologies to the folks in HR because they work very, very hard. But you reach out to HR and they say, hey, yeah, there's really, it can't be changed, right? I can't change that. There's nothing I can do about that. And so you stop. Anybody ever been in that situation? Well, I went to HR. They said there was nothing I could do, and that was the end of it. So in addition to talking to the wrong people, sometimes we stop too soon. So here's what I do. When I'm working with someone and they come back and they say, well, HR said there was nothing they could do about that. That's not what I hear. And I'm going to ask you to reframe this. What I hear is the HR person is saying, I don't have the authority. I don't have the power to change that. That is different from it cannot be changed, right? And sometimes we put the two together. So what they're saying is, I don't have the authority. There's nothing I can do to help you. So that's when it's important to understand your organization and to be able to identify then who is the person who can help me? Who is the person who has the authority and the influence who can get this changed? All right. And this could be any situation. And oftentimes you talk to your peers and you spend a lot of time venting, but no action. They can't help you oftentimes. Um, Oftentimes when I work with people, one of the things that, well, let me do it this way. There are two questions I always ask people when I start working with them, and I ask on these presentations. And the first question is, Nicole, can I use you as an example? All right. So I would say, Nicole, tell me about your performance. And Nicole, I'm guessing, would say, because she's engaged. So that already tells me a lot. And by the way, I just want to say this: make sure you understand your organization's philosophy around being on or off camera. I know there's a lot of discussion about whether it's right or wrong, but you do know that people are making assessments based on your engagement. So if you're always showing up as a black box, do not be surprised when people don't know who you are. If you get on calls and you never say anything, don't be surprised that when your name comes up, people are like, who? So I just want to throw that out there, as well as, with the remote thing. I know it's changing, it's very fluid, but there are written rules and there are unwritten rules. And I just want you to make sure that you understand what those are in your organization. Because nobody's going to come to you, Eric, and say, well, I know we say 3 days a week, but we really don't feel like people can perform or people are really going to have the collaboration to really make a difference if they're not here at least 4 or 5 days a week. Nobody's going to say that to you. All right. And I'm not saying that's what's happening. I'm saying I want you to make sure that you understand how it works in your organization. So, a big problem for a lot of people is we don't have any strategic relationships in the organization. So, I'm going to stop right here. And I want you in chat to tell me, what do you mean? What do I mean when I say you don't have any strategic relationships in the organization? Let me know what you mean and what you think I'm talking about in chat. Okay. Nobody has any thoughts. Thank you. Relationships of influence, any leadership contacts, cross-organizational connections, all of that. Sponsors, advocates, mentors, absolutely. So I'm going to ask you a question. I want you to just give me a yes or no in the chat. All right. Let's pretend it is 5:30 p.m. You get an email from your manager. They're referencing a situation that you guys may or may not have been aligned on. And the tone is a little different. And you're like, something is going on here. How many people have someone that you can call that evening that they will actually pick up the phone or they will call you back that evening, and that this is a person who will be able to have some influence or be able to give you guidance, strategic guidance on your situation that night? Okay, we have a few people say yes. All right, good. Now, here's the next part of the question, because most people don't. Now, here's the next part of the question. How many people have folks like that, but you don't use them? So you do have strategic relationships, but you don't use them. You don't call them. You wait until the situation has escalated to ask for their help. Okay? So now I'm seeing some people, no, not as often as I should. I use them because listen, when corporate comes for you, they are talking about you in the conference rooms. Who is at the table that's going to let you know what's going on? Who's going to come back to you and say, hey, Eric, listen, I don't know what's going on, but here's some things that I think you need to be on the lookout for. I think you might want to focus more on this. Or here's some things that I'm hearing. If you don't have someone like that, you are at a disadvantage. Oftentimes people say it's who you know, that's important. But what I say it's who knows you. Who has had a line of sight to your work enough that they would be comfortable speaking up on your behalf? Because every critical decision about your career is going to happen when you're not in the room. Whether it's a raise, whether it's a promotion, whether they're going to hire you, whether they're going to fire you, you are not in the room. Okay? And so that's what I find out. People come to me and I'm like, well, who do you know? Well, I know a lot of people. Okay, well, let's do you know anybody who might be able to have some influence or might be able to give you some insight? Yeah, I know a lot of people at the company. I'm like, great. Do you know this person, this senior manager, this director? Well, I know them, but I don't know them like that. Does that sound familiar to anybody? I know them, but I don't really know them like that. What I would say is sometimes we just got a lot, we know a lot of people at the job, but that doesn't mean you have relationships with them. Does that make sense to anybody? Give me a yes, a no, an emoji. It's one thing to, hey, how you doing? And see somebody on a coffee break. It's another to be able to go to that person and say, listen, I need to have a closed door conversation. I need to have an off the record conversation. All right. So I'm going to keep going here. Hold on 1 second. Okay. Uh, Give me 1 second here. Okay. So we talked about you wait too long, you operate from fear instead of strategy. All right. So what often happens when somebody sends you, hey, Nicole, or somebody sends you, you're in a meeting or you get some drive-by feedback and somebody says, hey, Nicole, um, you know, we've talked about this before, but I really think that we are not where we need to be with projects A, B, and C. How many people go back, or some version of that? How many people go back and do you see the Jim Carrey on my screen? You go back and you send an email and you start typing like this and you start putting together an email that lists every achievement you've ever had to say that no, this can't be possible. And you just start sending an email kind of to say I belong here. This isn't true. My performance. Anybody ever had that or seen somebody do that? Nobody? Okay, well let me show you what it looks like. This is what it looks like. So your manager, your leadership, this isn't a real email, so don't try to read it. This is what they get when they open up their phone. What do you think they're thinking? What are the Give me some emojis, give me something in chat. What do you think they're thinking? Usually when I see emails like this, they are coming from a place of emotion, not strategy. It's just you're just throwing up, right? And when people see this, they don't want to respond. They don't even want to read this. All right. So let's talk about what you can do instead. Assess what's really happening. Is this something new? Is this the first time you've gotten this comment? Or is this something you've been hearing bits and pieces about for a while? If it is, that is problematic. Are you and your manager aligned on what the issue is? Meaning, do you all both have the same definition of what the problem is or what the concerns are? Because oftentimes people don't. When you get into a situation where you may feel like corporate is coming for you, do you know what the outcome is that you want? One of the hardest questions for people to answer is they come and they say, "Hey, I got this issue and blah blah blah. And my manager's doing that, and they shouldn't be doing that, and they're doing this, and the company shouldn't do." I said, "Okay, so tell me what you want to happen. What do you want to happen?" And most people, there's been so much emotion, they don't know what they want to happen. They don't know what the outcome is that they're seeking. I want you to think about that and be clear before you start reacting, responding, document. What is the outcome you want from this situation? It could be as simple as clarity, right? Or it may be a behavior that you all need to have a powwow about and say, "Hey, this is not working." But understand what it is you want to happen. And then you're going to map your documentation, your conversation strategically to that outcome. Who can help you in these situations? Even if they can't help you, who can give you that insight? All of us know that person who's been at the company 25 years. They know where all the skeletons are hidden. They know who's has relationships with who. They know all the backroom dealings. Those people can be invaluable because sometimes you don't know, People have a pattern of this behavior. You're scared to say something about it, but what you don't know is you might be the fifth person complaining about this person. All right? Seek outside perspective. I don't mean outside of your organization. I mean the people, your community inside of the organization. And you notice I'm not saying the word network because network gets people kind of freaked out and it begins to sound like something transactional. Would you agree with me? We all have a community at work. Who is in your community at work? And the last thing is to move intentionally, not with emotion. All right. So let me give you an example. Has anybody ever had an ambush meeting where you come in the meeting and they're like, hey, Kelly P, um, it's Thursday, you're wrapping up, getting ready to go home or closing down your Zoom, and your boss calls, hey, Kelly, I need to meet with you tomorrow at 8:30 a.m. And you say, oh, okay, is there anything I need to prepare? No. Is there an agenda? No. Are you sure? No, just want to have a conversation. And for some people may already feel like this just feels uncomfortable or out of the norm. But you go in the meeting and then you get blindsided with something, right? And you're like, I haven't even, where is this coming from? Anybody give me some emojis. Has anybody ever had this situation before? Okay, we're gonna have to work on the sharing of the emojis here. All right. So here's the most important thing that I want you to know. If that ever happens to you, you don't have to respond in that moment. People get in those situations, they get very emotional, they quit, they want to curse somebody out, they start crying, they get angry. Here's what I want you to do. If you're in that situation and you have no idea what's going on, or you do have an idea of what's going on and you don't like it, you do not have to respond. So, what do I mean by that? Somebody comes to you, you're like, something is funky here. Here's what I want you to say. I want you to say, Kelly, this is what I want you to say. I want you to say, hey, thanks for that feedback. This is my first time hearing this. I'd like to take a couple of days to process this, and then I'd like to circle back with you on Thursday. What do you think happens when you take that approach? You go, you get with your mentors, you get with your advocates, you call the corporate alley cat, you go back on Thursday, and now who is going to be in control of that situation? You are. And by the way, you're going to say, hey, and you mentioned some emails. Could you send those to me? I'd like to have some time to really review those. So that's just one thing I want to let you know. You do not have to respond in the moment unless you're being terminated for something, right? You ask the questions that you absolutely must answer, but then you say, hey, I'm not sure about that. Let me take this back and see if I can pull something together. This is the first time I'm hearing about it. All right. Does that sound like something you could do that might help de-escalate some things? All right. So now let's talk about people wanted to know, well, what about the conversations? How do I have these difficult conversations? How do I have these conversations about microaggressions? I'm going to give you a framework and it works. I use it all the time, right? So let's say you feel like you need to have a difficult conversation with somebody at your job. Can somebody come off mute and just give me something real quick, a difficult situation that you might want to have a conversation about?
Don't agree with my performance appraisal or
Okay, great.
performance rating.
All right, thank you, Eric. All right, so you don't agree with your performance rating. So the first thing is before you write your email or set up your conversation, I want you to ask yourself, what is the purpose of this conversation? Do you just want to go in and say, I don't agree with my email? I don't agree with my performance review? Or do you want to go in because you think your performance review needs to be changed or you need to acknowledge that it is not accurate, right? So what is the purpose of the meeting? Now, this is something I think a lot of people miss that we don't spend enough time thinking about. What is the outcome you are seeking from that meeting? If this meeting is a success, Eric, if you go in there and you want to talk about your performance rating, what would make that meeting a success for you? What would make it a success?
one or two things, either a change or clarity on what can be done in the future to achieve the goal that I want.
Okay. Well, we're going to start with you're going to get some clarity on it, right? And then once you have the clarity, you may go, okay, so now I think we need to have it changed. You can pick and choose, but I like to have one good ask, right? Don't have to have too many because it's going to get a little muddled, right? You may be talking about you want to get it changed and they're still trying to give you reasons for why you got that rating, right? So be very clear on what it is the outcome you want. So let's just go with, you'd like to get more clarity on it. All right? So then, your outcome. What do you need to prepare before you get into that meeting? Do you need to bring some documentation? Do you need to prepare some questions? Do you need to bring some examples that dispute what's been said? Do you need some receipts? What do you need to have prepared? And then the last P is for progressive. What is the next step? I can't tell you how many people have the conversations, and I call them nice conversations versus productive conversations. Anybody know what I mean when I say nice conversations? You know those conversations you go in, you talk, and you really don't talk about anything. There's no next steps. You're in the same place you were when you went into the office. Anybody have that experience? All right. So the progressive is very important because that is what is the next step. I want people to know what the next step, if they can, before they leave the office. Why? Because if you don't, how many people have had to chase down somebody for that follow-up meeting? Nobody? I can't see everybody. But that's what a lot of people end up doing. They have to chase people down. So let me give you an example of what this may sound like. Eric, you can be my boss. Hey, Eric, thanks for putting time on the schedule today. As I share with you, the purpose or the reason I wanted us to get together and talk is because I'd like to discuss my performance review. I really like to get some clarity on how you came to this rating. I don't quite understand it, and I don't know if I feel that everything is accurate. So what I hope that we'll be able to do is that, we'll both be able to walk away aligned on an accurate picture of my performance, and that I will walk away clearly understanding my strengths and the areas that I need to focus on going forward. So as you're talking through the meeting, you can say, and listen, I've prepared some things, or I have some things I wanted to share with you. And you don't have to do all of this in the first 5 minutes, because I want to make sure that that we walk away where we are both clear. Both have a clear picture of my performance, a clear, accurate picture of my performance. And you go through it, and let's say you don't agree. Well, Eric, I see that we're not really seeing eye to eye on this, and I know we don't have much time. What I'd like to do is I'd like to go back and think about it. There's some things that I probably should have prepared, or some other things that I'd really like to discuss with you. Can we set up 15 minutes to continue? Or let's say you run out of time. Can we set up 15 minutes next week or at our one-on-one to start with this? Because I want to make sure that in 2026, we are both very aligned on my performance, my expectations, et cetera, et cetera. So that is an off the cuff, but do you get the sense of how you can stay focused in that conversation?
I do,
Because,
but one quick follow-up question for you, Deborah.
sure,
And I think the performance appraisal is a perfect example where there's, in most of the organizations that I worked with, the ratings have enough gray in it to where there's always some flex around, well, if it's not a metric, but a lot of it's kind of gray. So
sure.
there, sorry, I felt this way. The calibration did X, or yeah, so a lot of it you might get back is squishy. And when I give appraisals, I try to be clear, but sometimes it's not 100%. It's
Sure,
comparing your performance to someone else's performance. You have a
sure.
bell curve that you have to hit. And so some of it isn't 100% black and white.
You are absolutely right. But that doesn't mean that you don't have the conversation, because you don't know if you're going to get a squishy answer or you're going to get somebody who says, yeah, we need to talk about this. And so I'm glad you brought that up, Eric, because a lot of times when I'm talking to people, they have inaccurate assumptions about what the outcome's going to be before they've ever made an ask. So here's what I will tell you. I have worked with someone who got their performance changed. I myself have had a manager change what was written in my performance review. So, what I want people to understand, organizations can do whatever they want to do. Your job is to give them a compelling reason to take the action. But you don't not ask because you're like, well, there's a bell curve, so I know they're not going to do anything about it. I know I'm up against. You don't worry about that. You focus on what you need to have resolved. Don't go in there with those preconceived ideas because you never know what will happen. Oftentimes, we just don't ask. And listen, I understand reviews can be tricky. I've had to give them as well, right? But a lot of times people don't ask because they already think they know what the outcome is going to be. And then, y'all not going to want to hear this part. So then what happened when they see somebody else in a similar situation and they get a different response, then we get mad because they decided to ask for it and you didn't. So you've got to ask. I mean, and I'll give you a scenario where I had a client and we got the rating changed. And he got his $15,000 bonus. Now, if he had said, I know they're not going to do anything, he wouldn't have been able to get promoted. He would have lost that $15,000 bonus. And he would now have a brand that says he was a low performer. I don't think you can treat those things lightly. All right. Okay. So I'm not going to go through that. I'm going to go right to a case study. All right. So here's a challenge, and this will kind of answer your question, Eric. Devin received an unexpected email from his manager, June, stating that he had a pattern of poor performance. He reached out to me and he said, listen, my manager just said I have a pattern of poor performance. And I think she's trying to get rid of me. And I'm like, what does a pattern of poor performance look like? He's like, I don't know what it looked like. I don't know what it is. I don't know what she's talking about. So here was our strategy. Instead of reacting, you don't want to respond to anything until you are clear, or as clear as you can get. Let's say that way. Like what is the actual situation here? Is it really about performance or is there something else going on here? And if it is about performance, where is that feedback coming from? Is it performance that you've directly seen me, behaviors you've directly seen me engage in? Or is this one of those things where I've heard from people that you can be a little difficult, right? So you need to understand what is it you're working with. How many times have people said, well, people have said, X, Y, and Z about this. And we're like, really? But how many times have we gone a step further to say, are we talking about one person? Are we talking about 8 people? Do you see how that's going to change the scope? So don't let people get away with, well, I've heard, or people have said, well, how many people? We're talking about one person? It changes the scope. So we immediately address the situation. We're going to ask for specific details and rationale, and we're going to draft a professional response. So because of time, I'm going to go right into the email that we put together. All right. And I'm going to let you guys read it and give me your thoughts on it. Okay, give me a thumbs up when you finish reading. Okay, we got, thank you, La'ana. Okay, Kelly. All right. Any thoughts on that? I'm going to look in chat. Any thoughts on that? Okay. No thoughts on it. All right. Well, let me walk you through how we did this. The first thing we wanted to do was we wanted to set the tone to say we are open to feedback. Do you see that? Thank you for the feedback you provided. Does that sound angry? Does it sound confrontational? All right. The purpose, let's be clear, of this email is to obtain clarity and details regarding my performance so that I can take corrective action. So in the first sentence, we're letting them know what the purpose is. I can't tell you how many emails, and I'm like, I don't know what you want until I get to the third paragraph, right? Be upfront. This is the information I need. This is why I'm sending you this email. So we make our ask, right? Because our outcome is we need clarity and details. So we say, please share the incidents over the last 3 months that led you to determine that there was a pattern of poor performance. Is that a negative or angry question? No. Is that confrontational? No. I was surprised by the feedback for the following reasons. I have never received a poor performance rating in 10 years with this organization. I received a meets expectations for the year ending 2024. This is the first piece of documentation I've received from you indicating there was any problem with my performance, much less a pattern. So why are we throwing that piece in there? Well, we're setting the tone and we're not saying, this is, I don't know why you did this. I don't know how you came up with this. We're saying, hey, I'm concerned because here's some facts here. And these facts don't line up with this poor performance. And then we say, I'm committed to providing good business decisions for the organization and exceeding the expectations. All right. Look forward. So a lot of people say, well, I don't want to be confrontational. I don't want to be angry. I'm not good at having those difficult conversations. So I'm going to ask you to reframe with me right now. And what I want you to do, instead of saying I need to have a difficult conversation or a candid conversation or all of the different conversations that you've learned in your leadership, have a clarity conversation because most of these issues are all about clarity. And that's what I used to do in corporate. I would use the clarity. I just want to be clear. I just need more clarity, right? Now, the other thing about this, I think we work too hard in these situations. We do the manager's job. Do you notice this is a very short email, right to the point? Oftentimes we do the manager's job and we start listing dates. This happened, this happened. You don't need to, I don't have my folks do. You don't need to do that. They said you had a pattern of poor performance. They should be able to provide the specifics. You don't need to do that. We also kind of call this give it back to them. You gave me some vague feedback. I didn't understand it. I'm not going to twist myself into knots trying to figure it out. So I'm going to give it back to you and give you an opportunity to provide some clarity around this. All right? Thumbs up, thumbs down. We got to work on these emojis. We got to work on these emojis. All right. So, what happened in this situation? Well, sent the email to the manager. They had a one-on-one like the day after. The manager didn't bring it up. Now, what happens a lot of times is when you send an effective email, your manager will not respond. Um, they'll want to talk about it. And then some people are like, well, my manager didn't respond. I'm like, great. That's even better because if this continues, now you can say, well, I reached out, I asked for coaching, I didn't get it. And if yours is the only documentation, you are controlling the narrative. All right. Now, a lot of people, real quick on documentation, a lot of people will say, I'm documenting. I'll go, great. Let me see the documentation you sent out. They're like, oh no, I keep it in a notebook. I have it in a notebook. To me, that's journaling. You're keeping a journal. Documentation is you need to send it to that person and get some clarity on it. Not you making a note every time something bad happens. And oftentimes you have these journals, and let's be honest, you never use them, right? But I think it makes people feel like they're doing something. That is journaling. You're keeping a diary. That is not documentation, right? I believe documentation has to be sent to someone so that they can take action based on it. All right, so let me wrap up really quickly and tell you what happened. The manager, so he had to bring it up and he said, "Well, you didn't respond to my email." She said, "Well, you're documenting." And he was like, "Well, you're documenting." And then she said, "I didn't mean you had a pattern of poor performance. I was just trying to give you some general coaching." Oh, okay. So it wasn't a pattern of poor performance. It was just general coaching. Now, here's a mistake people make. They go, "Okay, we're good. Eric, my boss, he was just trying to give me some general coaching, so we're good." Okay, good, good. And then you just continue on as if nothing ever happened. Well, no, this is where people get into problems because the resolution is not documented. Anybody ever think something was resolved and 3 months later it pops up, or 6 months later it popped up on your performance review, and you're like, "Well, didn't we talk about this? I thought that was resolved." So, what you have to do is you have to send a follow up email. And it might go something like this: "I'm glad we had the opportunity to discuss that, it wasn't a pattern of poor performance. You were just giving me general coaching." And then I usually add something to take a proactive stance. And I think we said something like, "Let's set aside 15 minutes of our one-on-ones to not discuss performance, but to enhance and elevate our communication and partnership." Do you see how we're not focusing on the performance? We're just talking about communication, elevating it. The other thing I want to tell you, it's very important when you write these emails because this is the beginning of the narrative. And if it doesn't get resolved like this, other people will be seeing that email. So you want to make sure that anybody who sees this email, they'll quickly be able to understand what the situation is. So Eric, when you look at this, let's say you're a director. Your manager says, I got this email from my team member. What's one of the first things you're going to ask your manager?
Was it resolved? What's the status?
And he says, "No, it wasn't. This is what he sent me."
We need to resolve it.
He's asking me for feedback. But I think what you might say is that, "Well, did you give him any documentation?" Right? You may look at this and go, "Well, did you give him any documentation? Well, what's his performance history? Um, have you had any conversations with him?" Right? But you're just setting the tone and you want to write it in a way that anybody can look at it and go, "Okay, I understand the situation and I have a sense of what's going on here," right? Because this is going to be the beginning of it. All right, Eric. And by the way, this whole thing was wrapped up really like less than 2 weeks.
Okay.
Okay.
Deborah, can I do one quick thing?
Yeah.
So I want to thank everyone who joined us. We are at time, so if, it looks like Deborah has a few minutes to share with us if you want to stay over. But I want to thank those who joined for allocating time for this session. Deborah, outstanding job, and thanks for staying over a few minutes to share your expertise with us. And I look forward to seeing everyone at our session next week. Deborah.
Yes. So if anybody has any questions, I'm happy to answer them. Um, what I wanted to do is say stay in touch. You can reach out to me via email. Please join me on LinkedIn under Deborah T. Owens. You can go to our website. You can go to our website and you can download our toolkit. And it has 3 scenarios where it actually walks you through how to address them. Scenarios like, has anybody ever been in a meeting and you come up with an idea and somebody else says it 10 minutes later and you're like, "Isn't that what I just said?" Anybody ever had that situation? Well, if you download this toolkit, you will know exactly how to respond to that verbatim, right? So please make sure you go to the Corporate Alley Cat. Um, Here's how we help people. We do one-on-one coaching. We have a 1 month intensive, and that's for people who are going through a situation. And we also have 3 or 6 month programs where we really are talking about career strategy, elevation. And a lot of times these are people who are doing well, but they want to do better. They want to have more strategy. They want to move with more intention. We also have some programs that we offer. One is the Career Accelerator. The other is the 6 Pillars for Corporate Confidence. And we have leadership development programs, career development programs, and all of that that can be done virtually or in person. And so, what I want to say to you is if you're responsible for developing talent, retaining talent, protecting talent, leading an ERG, I'd love to talk with you because we'd love to partner with you.